Hi guys. Um, I'm gonna read the book that we were reading before the giant break, and it's "The War I Finally Won" by Kimberly Brubaker Bradley. And I'm going to start where we left off at chapter 42. Here we go. Potato picking was tedious, dirty, exhausting, and cold. I rather liked it. Mr. Elliston pulled a plow down the rows of potato plants, halfway digging them up and loosening the soil around them. The rest of us followed on foot, scrabbling through the heavy, wet dirt to unearth the potatoes. We filled buckets with potatoes, then emptied the buckets into a wagon on the edge of the field. We worked from dawn to dusk, with only short breaks. We were filthy and half frozen by the end of each day. We were useful. Potato picking was real work, important war work, and I had become a strong girl who could work hard for hours. I had become a tough girl who could ignore the aches in my shoulders and the blisters that sprang up on my palms. Beside the three land girls, it was only Jamie, Ruth, Maggie, and me for all of the Thorntons' vast fields. The first morning, Maggie lagged behind. When I finished my row and went to the top of hers to help, she said, "Go away. I'll catch up. I don't need you." "Give over, Maggie." She glared at me. "I'm doing my best. My fingers are frozen, and I hate this." Which had nothing to do with anything, did it? No one asked us if we want to pick potatoes. It was war work, and we were expected to get on with it. I said, "My fingers are frozen too." Maggie looked as though she was about to cry. She said, "I wish my father were here. I wish this was still my front lawn. I wish Jonathan..." I looked up at Thornton House, majestic on the edge of the potato field, with strangers' cars parked in front of it and unknown men in uniform walking in and out. Maggie had lived there all her life. Now she shared a bedroom with a slum-born orphan in her family's former gamekeeper's cottage. Maggie had started out in life with more good things than anyone I ever knew. She'd lost and lost in this war. I'd been a crippled, ignorant prisoner looking out of the window of a dingy London flat. Now I walked on 2 feet and rode and read and shared a bedroom and bookshelves with the daughter of a baron. Except for losing Mam, I'd done nothing but gain. Did Mam dying count as loss or as gain? Maggie bent over her row. My fingers found another potato. "Incoming!" I shouted and lobbed it at Maggie's head. She jumped, startled, and whirled to glare at me. "Please laugh," I said. "That was funny." She did laugh. "You're an idiot," she said. "So are you." We grinned at each other. Then we both threw potatoes at Ruth. Ruth fired back. Jamie and one of the land girls joined in. We smacked each other with filthy, squishy, mud-covered potatoes. One of Ruth's hit me square in the mouth. "Stop that!" shouted Rose. She was the oldest land girl and the most in charge. She flew at us, waving her empty bucket. "Stop it! Stop! You pick those up right now! Stop throwing potatoes! We're not wasting food. We are in the middle of a war." Jamie chucked a potato at Rose. She snatched it out of the air. Don't try me, she warned. I've 5 brothers and better aim than you. Maggie picked faster after that. It was easier to pick when she'd been laughing. At lunch, we sat together on the long table in the Elliston's kitchen. Mrs. Elliston's food was hot and good. Ruth had hardly spoken all morning, and I didn't blame her. "You're the German girl?" Miss Elliston asked her. Ruth nodded. I said, "Her father lost his job, and her family lost everything, and now her grand's imprisoned in a place called Ravensbrück. Also, she's Jewish." The land girls exchanged glances. Mrs. Elliston said, "My 2 boys are fighting in the army." She looked at Ruth appraisingly. "I can't say I'm glad you're here," she said. "I'm being honest. I can say you're only a bit of a girl, and I'm sorry for your family's trouble, but it's hard to trust you. No mistake." "I know," Ruth said. "I don't blame you." "My mother didn't want to let her pick potatoes," Maggie said. "I'd not go that far," Mrs. Elliston said. "We haven't got nearly enough help as it is." "When my man locked me up," I said to Ruth as we walked back to the field, "she told all of our neighbors it was because I was simple, so they wouldn't try to help me." Ruth looked at me. "It's not really the same. I am German, and we are at war. I understand why they're afraid." "I'm sure your gran will be fine," I said. Ruth said, "I'm sure she will not." Ruth picked more potatoes than any of us, including the land girls, who were used to hard work. At the end of the day, Rose made a point of shaking Ruth's hand. "I'll see you tomorrow," she said. "You will," Ruth said, with a hint of a smile. I dumped my last bucket of potatoes into the wagon. Ruth gave me a perplexed look. "Why'd you do that?" she asked. "You know you're allowed to take potatoes home." I did not know it. "Really? How many?" Rose grinned. "As many as you can carry." "Did you think you were working this hard for free?" "Sure," I said. "It's war work. I thought we had to." Rose shook her head. "You'll be paid, too." "Really? Actual money?" Maggie had come up behind me. 2 shillings a day. That's what it was last year. 2 shillings a day? And she'd been unhappy about it? I'd do just about anything for 2 shillings a day. Finally, a chance to earn. "Ruth," I said, "we're getting 2 shillings a day." Ruth grinned. Jamie came running up. "Me too?" "You too," Rose said. "You worked hard." Jamie smiled. He was mud from head to toe. Only his teeth were still clean. I filled our picking bucket to the brim. Maggie stared. She said, "I am not carrying that many potatoes all the way home." "Maggie," I said, "they're food for winter. We earned them." "We earned them," echoed Jamie. "I have blisters," Maggie said. I spread my oozing palms face up in front of her. Ruth came over and held out her own hands. One of them was actually bleeding. Maggie sighed and reached for her bucket. "Sometimes, Ada," she said, "I get very tired of you setting the example for us all." "If I'd known you all wanted pocket money," Susan said at dinner, "I would have found a way to give you some." "That wouldn't be right," Ruth said. "I can't take money from you. You're being paid to teach me." "I don't want money from you either," I said. "I want to earn." "Ada," said Susan, "I told you and told you. You don't have to worry about money." "Of course I did. If something bad happened, we were all better off with money put by." She glared at me. "Can't you learn to trust?" I took a bite of bread, shrugged my shoulders, and looked away. "Mum," Jamie said with profound satisfaction. My fingers itched to smack him. That night, I heard a sound on the other side of my bedroom wall, the wall I shared with Ruth's room. "Maggie," I said, sitting up. "Ruth's crying." Maggie sat up too. "She won't want us bothering her," she said after a moment. "She never cries," I said. I got up and went out to the hall, knocked on Ruth's door. "Come be with Maggie and me," I said. Ruth did not unlock the door. "Please go away," she said. The crying stopped. At least I couldn't hear it anymore. The second morning of potato picking, I woke up stiff and aching everywhere. It was worse than the days when I first taught myself to walk. The second day of potato picking, my hands hurt so badly by lunchtime that I could barely hold a fork. We all hurt. It was hard work. At night, we took baths and went to bed early. Lady Thornton sniffed over the blisters on Maggie's hands. "You ought to wear gloves," she said. "My hands are no worse than everyone else's," Maggie said. "Have you looked at Ruth's?" Of course, she had not. Since Jonathan's death, Lady Thornton barely acknowledged Ruth. But at dinner, she divided the meat on her plate and shared it out between us. Maggie, Jamie, Ruth, and me. Lady Thornton helped herself to more potatoes. We had plenty of those. We picked potatoes for 12 days. We each carried home 10 pounds of potatoes every day, which meant by the end, we had earned nearly 500 pounds of potatoes. They filled the little back room. We could eat them all winter. We wouldn't have to queue for them or carry them home from the village. A back room full of potatoes. In Mam's flat, we never had anything extra stored away. Each of us also earned 24 shillings. 24 shillings. More than a pound. I never in my life expected to have so much money all at one time. For certain, Mam never did. I counted the shillings out on the table. 4 piles of 6, 8 piles of 3, 6 piles of 4. Shillings, shillings, shillings! Money could be a kind of ward. "Ada," Susan sat down beside me, sighing. "You could die," I said. "I won't," she said. "You could," I said. "Jonathan was a pilot. Stephen's mother." "That was the Blitz," she said, "and it's over." "Becky," I said. Becky's name lay between us. Becky, who Susan loved. Becky, who I'd never met. Never would. Becky, who was dead, like Mam. Susan reached for my hand. I let her take it. "You know so many hard things," she said. "I forget sometimes how much you've endured. Save your money if it will help you feel better." "Please let me stay home," Maggie begged. "I'm not learning anything. I can go back after Christmas." "Don't be ridiculous," Lady Thornton said. "You're safer at school. The village has not been bombed in ages. You're just trying to be rid of me. Susan doesn't make Ada leave." "Susan knows my position," Lady Thornton said, "as do you. The matter is not open for debate." "Don't speak to me like I'm one of your WVS women," Maggie said. "I'm your daughter. Pretend you have some compassion." That was low, but I didn't blame Maggie. "I'll watch her," I said to Maggie when she left. I'll let you know how she does. Thanks, Maggie said, hugging me. Who's watching Maggie? I asked Susan. She has friends at school, Susan said. She has teachers. I shook my head. She needs her mother.